Let me say, at this moment, I would observe and accept all protocols established before, except that I acknowledge the presence of the former Prime Minister and the leader of the United Progressive Party. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. When I wrote this, I said good morning. But you notice something? I think we have been absorbed in a very wonderful day of reflection. I am indeed honored that the opportunity is extended to me to address you this afternoon. The ABWU is an organization dear to my heart, as I was integrally involved in many of the struggles which existed at the time of its origin. Today is an opportunity to reflect on the progress over the years and to take stock where the organization is. That is why I found the theme for this conference quite intriguing. When I say intriguing, I do not mean that statement in any negative way. For any organization must, from time to time, conduct some method of critical reflection and self-assessment. The theme of the conference is, as you have heard, uniting workers with a renewed vision. I'm delighted to be advised of this, as I believe it is indeed timely and will assist in the required focusing of your efforts in planned self-reflection. Hidden in this caption for the conference might be a subtle acknowledgement of several issues which need immediate attention. But let me ask some questions in order to clarify the focus of my address, United Workers. Am I to gather from those two words that there is some aspect of this unity? I will speak about this possibility later in my address. Workers. Are we speaking of workers who exist, are existing members of the union, or of workers in general? I think you've heard some allusion to what it should really be leaning towards. How many of those workers fit into the membership classifications currently existing in the union's constitution? I then turn to the spotlight on the last two words of the theme, renewed vision. Is there a current vision? I believe there ought to be, and with that in mind, I therefore ask, what are the driving factors forcing a review of the current vision? Who owns this vision? And is it well known among the members, officers, employees, executive members of the union? So I classified everybody ought to be aware of what the current vision is. If you don't know where you are, it's very difficult to step up to where you want to go, because it'll be worse than where you currently are. Before dealing with each of these subject areas, let me attempt to assess the significance of the theme both historically and currently. And for that, I break the review into three periods: 1967 to 1976. I think you should know why 76 is included there. 1977 to 2000, and finally 2001 to current. Just after its formation in 1967, the Antigua Workers' Union could be described as having the focus of an eagle's eyes. Three objectives kept it motivated and fully energized. These could be classified as A, to increase its membership base; 2, or B, being acknowledged as the primary bargaining agent at as many of the established companies as possible; and 3, surviving the toxic environment in which it was called to exist. I'm going to come back to that theme very shortly. The Antigua Workers' Union of my review period in the first period was very focused and articulate and grabbed every opportunity to make its voice as a representative of the workers heard. It remained vocal and used various platforms and locations to get its messages across. It had a clear vision, which it felt it could achieve. However, as anyone playing a good game of chess, of worry, or draft will tell you, the desire to win is not a guarantee of success. You must pace yourself, know your mid-game moves, and be absolutely clear about your end-game strategy. You must also be capable of accessing the strategy of your opponent, then using your planned or amended game plan, react in order to win. I'm gonna just quietly let that sink in. No cricketer goes to bat, thinks he's gonna hit every ball for 4 runs. He has to assess whether the ball is moving, whether the field is coming off fast, and then you watch Viv. He will then know what stroke to play. Likewise, the Antigua Workers' Union was very successful in gaining grounds from the ATNLU in the early period up until about 1970. With strong support from the workers, the waterfront workers, cable and wireless workers, LIAT workers, just to name a few, the union prospered. Between 1971 and 76, it could be said that there was a favorable and friendly government in power. You're going to hear me say that a couple of times. It's important, very important for workers' progress. But let's take a closer look at this environment and the relationship which on the surface one would have expected to be close. The working relationship one had anticipated between the ABWU, at the time as it was called, and the PLM had cracks and roadblocks all over the place. And if I were to read to you a comment which was in one of our magazines in the very early period, it was in a reflection from a letter that came from the political leader of the PLM. And it alluded that the ABWU is the industrial arm of the progressive labor movement. And the union quickly responded, we are asking you to delete those words because it is not in our interest for them to be in your memorandum. Further, we wish to point out that the Antigua Workers' Union is not an arm of the PLM and that you are not competent to speak on behalf of the ABWU. That's important. I was in the executive meeting when we had to make that decision. Why? Why did we have to do that? I will tell you why we had to do that. The critical thing is the period before 1977, the beginning of my second period of assessment, was both good and bad. Good in that we grew very rapidly, we flexed our muscles, we gained a lot of benefit for our workers and members. But the period between 1977 and 2000 saw a diminishing of some of the focus accompanied by an increased struggles between the ABWU and the new ALP administration. With the abolition of the agency shop, for those of you who remember that particular word, and a heavier workload at the two main industrial resolution agencies, the Labor Department and the Industrial Court, the fight for workers' benefit became increasingly difficult with the loss of significant funds. You know why I pause? Not because I'm thirsty. I hope you realize it takes money to fight a cause. The result is, this resulted in a loss of interest in the existing members and potential members. And here I quote from 2 reports of the Executive Committee during this period. The future looks very bleak. There seems to be no end to the hostility that is waged against the working class people. The shackles of misery and repression continue to fetter our people, and the all-out effort to crush the AWU continues unabated. It's back to the old days of revenge. And this was at the AWU 14 conference in 1980. I'm going to bring up some memory boards. You know why. The second one is this. Despite the many clandestine attempts perpetrated to destroy the AWU by the ALP government and its grand alliance of employers, the union has remained a permanent and effective organization serving the interests of the working class of Antigua and Barbuda. Although the organization, for the most part, have survived the onslaught, there are many problems that continue to pose a serious threat to free trade union movement in general and the Antigua Workers' Union in particular. It is incumbent upon us, therefore, to examine and, where appropriate, overhaul the union's administrative and structural machinery very carefully and charter a course of action that will counter these growing anti-union tendencies which have become so prevalent in recent years. I don't want you to guess, because I'm going to tell you. That was in 1981. And you're going to see something I'm going to develop. I'm going to show you that these things, the 3 periods show 3 things happening over and over again to this union and to workers in general. The system of area sections and functional membership units failed to produce the level of participation which the annual conferences of this period had hoped for. A new strategy was called for, and a new section structure was devised and subsequently adopted. The final period, between 2000 and 2022. Listen carefully to this one. On the surface, this period panned out similar to the first period, except on this occasion, many more external factors became important and had tremendous impact on workers and the business environment. Once again, a friendly government took office between 2004 and 2014. And for 10 years, there was less of an aggressive approach to workers' benefit. And many persons would have said, hip, hip, hooray. The question which has to be asked is this: did the new atmosphere advance workers' benefit at all? In your deliberations, this question and factual assessment of growth should be looked at, Mr. President and Mr. General Secretary. This latter section of the period has placed the union once more in a similar situation as it did in period 2, when it had to go through some soul searching and reflection. I now turn my attention to the questions asked in the open paragraph. The workers alluded to cannot be existing members only. Several new businesses have been established in the state by foreign investors under the CIP, or Citizens by Investment Program. Have they brought with them new approaches to workers' remuneration and benefits? Or are they fixated on minimizing any workers' remuneration and development? With whom should the ABWU look for partnership to ensure the welfare of all workers? I have already answered the question on the makeup of the population of workers. I now turn my attention to the vision, which at this time, what should be covered by this common vision? The world today is a very different form from the periods of number 1 and number 2, which I alluded to. What, therefore, should be included in this new vision? How does the union sell itself? Share the vision. Use it to motivate the workers. What are the signposts which clearly show that we are on track to deliver the vision's objectives? Whom do you engage as protagonists to assist the union to spread that vision? And I have a couple of captions that I want to discuss very briefly. What should the new vision include? The working climate today differs from that of earlier periods and the early part of period 3. Here are a few areas which should grab workers and their representatives' attention as they develop such a new vision. Changes in the environment have forced changes in the workplace and called for changes in job needed today, the type of job and qualification required for those new jobs as well. Workers must be engaged with the necessary training and given the opportunity to advance their skills to meet the requirements of the new work environment. The employer should not feel that you only have to bring someone in to fill that post. Internal development must be mandated as a requisite requirement for doing business in this country. They must be made aware of the impact of the new task on the environment and their livelihood. World economies are constantly forced to adjust their methodology of supporting governance as a result of changes in the cost of doing business. Higher cost of doing business forces everyone to scrutinize the minutest of cost factors of the business, minimize them where possible, and encourage government to incentivize businesses who make the best use of our own scarce resources. This factor should be recognized and addressed in your new vision. Many of the changes in today's workplace call for changes in where one works, how they work as teams, and how they share risks and benefits. I remember in my early career in telecommunication, I saw the move from component replacement to sub-assembly change out in the repair of telecommunication equipment. I bet if I were to ask you what impact that was, you probably don't pick it up. But in the first part, you had to go and take that equipment out and repair it down to small components. In the second part, they said, don't bother with that. Take the whole unit out and shove a new one in. Boom. A new skill, but a lost skill as well. Because the diagnosis skill which you had before, you no longer need. But you need something else. Now with the Internet of Things, we have gone even further. Remotely, we can and do control entire systems, making changes in program functions and dynamically rerouting operations to avoid interruptions. I wish ABWU had that for electricity. This is a new and changing set of skills for the worker of tomorrow and will be in greater demand in the workplace of tomorrow. We should be cognizant of the need for social partners. I've heard it said twice so far, and I'm going to repeat it. No man is an island, and we live in a society of many various parts. As St. Paul said, we are one body, but we have arms and eyes and feet. We all need to work together to achieve the one common good of moving from one point to another. You don't want to reach there and then your feet somewhere back there, right? Other allied unions and non-union organizations, even the church, should be canvassed and persuaded to share the vision and bring their unique perspective in deliverance of the vision objectives. Some of these potential partners remain too silent in the face of grave and existential pressures on workers. It is sad. When opposed away from the spotlight, their view of concerns fill your ears, yet they fail to join with the workers' representative organization to assist in the fight for the requisite benefit to the workers of this country. one might ask a question: why? The most challenging aspect of vision creation comes with the required changes within the unit, within the union. In the vision, how does the union take into consideration non-unionized workplaces? Are there not workers there? Should they be allowed at all? That's a question for our partners in politics. Should any particular area be carved out as non-unionized possibility? How does the union sell the concept of higher productivity and the resulting compensation to both workers and the modern-day businessman? You know why I say that? Because both sides make one coin. If you want to benefit, there must be consequential benefit for the business person for that to be long-serving. The new vision should include enhanced union membership benefits as well, and a regrouping of members to achieve the best participation. I remember many years ago when we started to discuss this thing of zoning and how we had our section members. And there was a long discussion. I think Prime Minister might remember whether we group is Seaton's, Glanville, and this bring together and don't. Because we, as education officers, education committee, had to go out and talk to these people. So if you have a too small a group, you have too many to go and talk to. If it's too large a group, then it's too big, and people lose interest and don't feel connected. Ease of doing business is not a concept for the businessman only. The union will have to examine this concept in any self-examination of value of membership. I go to the other bullet point: how to sell and share and use the vision. A vision statement should be prominent and easily recognized upon any of the media which the union uses to identify and communicate its existence. A prospective member, upon entering this premises, should see and feel your vision statement. The attitude of workers, officers, executive members should speak and act the vision. There should be no doubt that each person connected with the union shares that new vision, walks that new vision, and talks that new vision. Mr. Chairman and members of the executive officers of the ABWU, in making this presentation, I've taken the time to share only some of my views of what I believe will unite workers with you and to facilitate the growth of one union, which I believe has taken the fight of workers in this country from the dark days of yesterday to the brighter light of today. The ABWU now needs to take this fight to deliver the benefits of tomorrow. I wish you and the membership every success, the bright prospects for a successful tomorrow, and I thank you for this wonderful opportunity having me address you this morning. You see, there it goes again. I should say this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed.